This is Margaret from Mud Run Guide. I am here with Adam and Karen Kimble. And for those that don't know and haven't been following, Adam just ran across the country, and Karen has to be one of the most supportive wives in the world by following him across the country. So welcome and thanks for taking some time. And now you're done, right? Done.
Yeah, yeah, we're done. It's been a little over 2 weeks since we finished, and it feels good to be able to kick the feet up a little bit and, and rest and recover after 60 days of covering miles across the U.S.
So I guess the first question anybody asks, and you've probably been asked this a bunch of times already, why would you run across the country?
So for me, yeah, great question. For me, it started as I wanted to physically challenge myself. I love, as an ultra runner, I love to see what my body's capable of. And I know this is a little extreme. I recognize that, but it was something that I wanted to pursue. And so it started off with that, and then we also wanted to raise money for charity. So we partnered with a charity out of California called Impossible to Possible. And so we were excited about doing everything we could to raise awareness for what they're doing. And then as we got into the run, the focus shifted from breaking the record, which we didn't do, but we initially set out to do. We realized that the focus is much more on just inspiring and encouraging people across the country to do big things. And that became really the focus of the run. So when I set out, I didn't know that's what it was going to be, but that clearly became the theme of what we were doing.
And Karen, what did you think when Adam says, "I want to run across the country, and you can live in an RV for 2 months and follow me"?
Yeah, not shower and like hang out with two other guys and just I'll see you at the end of the day. No, I mean it was something that I didn't necessarily see it coming, but it wasn't just he went from not running at all to all of a sudden I want to run across the US. I saw throughout the past couple of years slowly his desire to run more and more miles kept increasing. And then, last year when we were traveling, he had mentioned something about running along the Pan American Highway, which goes from Canada to
Yeah,
the tip
yeah.
of South America.
After we realized later on, we realized that the Pan American Highway is 19,000 miles long. So that's going to be we're going to need to carve out a little more time if
Yeah.
we ever pursue that.
So that was, compared to that, running across the U.S. sounded a lot more manageable. No border crossings, you don't need to take years off of work, whatever. But no, I mean, my initial thought was that's crazy, but he felt very strongly that that's something that he felt he wanted to do. And so then it shifted from that's crazy to, okay, well, how do we make it work? So spent quite a bit of time on the front end just trying to figure out all the logistics and everything. But,
Yeah. So I guess tell me, how do you train for something like this, and then how do you prepare for effectively shutting down your day-to-day life for 2 months?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where you prepare as much as you can. You can't fully simulate what you're about to do from a training standpoint. So I just tried to put in a big number of miles leading up to the run. I wanted to be in as good of physical shape as I could be in terms of cross training and things like that too. So tried to cover all my bases. I did a few kind of simulation days where I was out for 12 plus hours running during the day. And honestly, in retrospect, looking at it now, if I was ever to attempt this again, I would probably do a lot more of those days. I was concerned about doing too many of them and that wearing me out close to when I was starting, but you get worn out after a couple of days. So I honestly think it's better to do kind of the break-in period before you even begin the run. So I think that's something that I'd take into effect or take into consideration, I guess, for a future attempt. I don't know if you want to answer the part about preparing to shut life down for a couple of months.
But yeah, I think our situation is probably a little bit different than maybe other people that are attempting some kind of massive undertaking like this. We, in 2015, at the beginning of the year, left our jobs and traveled internationally for a year. So, we left our jobs back then, and so when he decided that he wanted to do this, it was kind of like, well, we we have the time, so to speak, now. If we ever going to do something like this would be a great time because we don't have to worry about trying to get 2 months off of work, and we don't have to worry about our apartment or our house because all of our stuff's already in storage. So it's like, well, we'll just keep it in storage. And so yeah, go ahead.
No, but then again, what's great about that is that coming from Red Frog events, 2 of our crew members were working at Red Frog, and the company was so gracious to allow them to continue working remotely for those 2 months, which was huge for our crew. So that's something that, even though I wasn't with the company anymore, it was amazing that they were willing to accommodate us like that. So that was really cool.
Yeah, and for those that don't know, Red Frog is the parent company of Warrior Dash. So that's how us over at Mud Run Guide got connected with you and your story, and so it's been fun following it all along. And as we said before we started recording this, I'm like, I feel like I know you guys, even though this is the first time we're talking to each other. So maybe tell me a little bit about, for those who didn't read the full 60 days of recaps, give me the abbreviated version of your experience. I mean, I'm sure you can't even process it all still yet.
Yeah, for sure. We continue to process it every day. There's more things to think about, but generally speaking, we started in Huntington Beach, California, began running. We're hoping initially to break the record, which would have been about 66-ish miles a day. So our plan was to begin by covering about mid-50s for the first couple of weeks, or first week and a half, and then start to bump up into the 60s as kind of a progression into the mileage. That's something that Frank Giannino, who's the current record holder, that was his strategy, and it worked out really well for him. So we kind of tried to adopt that. Unfortunately, we never really got the chance to employ that. Really the second day I started having a little bit of pain, and then it turned into a slew of injuries that started in one area, shifted. They would be on one side of the body. Then as that would improve, the other side of the body would act up. And it was really blowing my mind because I hadn't had these sorts of injuries ever before in my running career. So it was strange for me, but we had to deal with it. Eventually, the 8th day, which was so much earlier than I ever could have imagined, the pain was so bad that my physician flew from Chicago to Phoenix to look me over and kind of do a checkup and things. He made some adjustments, and then we talked to him the following day, and based off of some videos that we had shown him, he suggested that we stop the run. And he had spoken to one of his doctor friends who had the same, they were both in agreement that should be the decision that we make. So rather than just ending it right then, we decided to take a few days off, see if some of the inflammation and things would get better. The inflammation in my shin, which at the time was the problem, got better. And then we picked it up after a 3-day hiatus. And there was lots of ups and downs after that, but we continued on. And eventually, after 60 days, we finished 2,500 miles in Tybee Island, Georgia. So we ended up making it despite the really early issues that we ran into. It was nowhere near what we had set out to do in terms of the record, but still we were all really, really excited about the achievement.
I don't think anybody is gonna say, "Oh, you only ran to Georgia." I mean, for most people, just going out on a 5 or 10 mile run, that's a big excursion out, or running a marathon, or
Right.
an ultra marathon. So you're running back to back to back ultra marathons every day. And Karen, what was it like for you seeing? I mean, Adam was obviously in pain for a lot of the time. Was that hard to sort of help manage him reach his goal, but at the same time see that pain?
Yeah, it was I anticipated it being difficult somewhere down the road. I was thinking like maybe day 20 he'd start to feel the injuries and stuff, and I was not prepared emotionally to be dealing with watching him be injured, but then also I want to tell him to stop, but I also know that that's not what he needs to hear, and that's not what he wants to hear. And so it was just constantly kind of on the line between being his wife and being a crew member, where it was like, do I push? Do I not? And that was, that emotionally, that was a lot more difficult than I anticipated, because it's obviously nobody wants to watch somebody that they care about be in pain. But then I also didn't want to share with him how I was feeling because it's like he's dealing with so much himself. So I had to navigate that. That was a new area. I've never had to, he had mental battles and I did as well, but very different. But ultimately, I think we both came out stronger on the other side. So.
Yeah, well, you're still sitting in the same room together, so obviously it went okay.
Yeah. Which it's funny. It's funny that you say that because we had multiple conversations with. So our crew consisted of the two of us, my two former coworkers from Red Frog that were in our main RV, and then our other two crew members, Adam and Lindsay, were in their own pull behind camper that they owned. So between the six of us, the fact that we spent basically every waking minute together for 2 months and everybody continued to get along and wasn't at one another's throats, I think was a testament to the crew that we had. It was pretty cool to see that.
Yeah. And I guess I feel like for people that haven't ever been involved in this massive of an endurance endeavor, the questions become like, what did you eat? I know this is a funny question, but what did you eat? I mean, how many calories a day did you eat to try to, and then how much weight did you lose? I should say those two things.
So I was honestly, it felt like there wasn't a moment when I wasn't eating. I was just constantly putting down food. So I'd wake up. Initially, we were starting running at 4 in the morning, and then we did that up until the clocks move forward, and then to try to stay on the same clock, we started then at 5 after that. But every morning, woke up, ate a breakfast. So usually that was like a bagel with peanut butter, honey, cinnamon, banana. And so that would be like the initial thing. Then for the next couple of hours, I'd be eating different bars, gels, the whole slew of running foods. And then I would eat a second breakfast, usually around 7 or 8. Then the next few hours continue with the snacks. So I would end up having 4 meals a day: first breakfast, second breakfast, lunch, and dinner, with all of the eating in between. And that amounted to an average of 6,400 calories a day, which seemed like we thought would be enough. But over the course of the entire 2 months, I ended up losing about 20 pounds. And so there were certain times when, for whatever reason, the weight would just take a dip, and then it would level out for a while, and then another dip, and then level out. So we tried to keep it as static as we could, but it's really, really hard to put down that many calories and not have some sort of a weight deficit.
I mean, he was trying everything. He's eating donuts all the time. He had Dairy Queen and Sonic cravings. Like every time he would run by one, he'd come to the pit stop and be like, I don't, if you guys go past another Dairy Queen, like I could really go for a Oreo cheesequake, and so it's not that he wasn't eating plenty of calories.
Yeah. And I don't eat, what's funny is that the cravings with things like that, I don't even typically eat ice cream, but for whatever reason, that was like the thing. That and salty foods, which makes sense with the loss of sweat.
Yeah. Sugar, salt, fat.
Exactly. My body was just like going into survival mode. Give me anything you can to keep going.
Yeah, I can only imagine. I can imagine you just being like, I'm just gonna eat whatever there is in front of me.
Yeah.
And for me, I'd probably be wanting salt and vinegar chips and pickles all the time. That's my ultra go-tos. And Pop-Tarts all of a sudden. I hate Pop-Tarts in my daily life, but I don't know, when I'm running or crewing, that's all I seem to eat.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah.
So like you guys obviously had a lot of fun. Like a lot of the pictures and some of the videos you guys sent us were ridiculous and hilarious. So tell me about some of the maybe some of the shenanigans that happened on the road that you can talk about. I'm sure there's enough that are left on the road that are never to be mentioned again, but
yeah. Well, yeah, we tried to have as much fun as possible, and it was good too that I think we had a really hilarious mix of personalities on our crew, which was good because you need that. You know, you need a lot of variety and to mix things up to keep people to keep the mood light when things aren't always going well. But one thing that comes to mind when you mentioned shenanigans is we had a bunch of actually it was mostly there was more than one person, but mostly our crew member Josh, who's a race director at Red Frog. He was constantly inventing new personalities and trying them out in the group. So he had one specific one that just cracks me up is he called it the trans. So we what we refer to this journey as was the transcon, short for transcontinental. So his character was called the transcon shaman, and he would dress up. He'd put like blankets on. He'd wear a buff over his head and sunglasses, and then he'd come and heal my injuries by examining me and talking in a weird voice. And it was super goofy, but it's funny and it keeps the mood light and everyone having a good time, you know.
Yeah, so Adam and Lindsay were the ones that were they have their own pull behind trailer, and we referred to them as our hype men. No matter what was going on, they were always positive, in a good mood, trying to joke around. And the initial video that we made, the 500-mile video, was Lindsay's idea in collaboration with the videographers. And at the time when she presented it to our RV, we were waiting for Adam to come in, and she was like, I want to make this video. He's about to hit 500 miles. And we were kind of feeling his pain at that point, and we weren't really in the mood to do it, but she talked us all into it, and it was like the best thing that, it was exactly what we needed. And that's kind of how it was. Every time he wouldn't be feeling great, we'd be down as a crew, Adam and Lindsay would come in with some fun idea and brighten everybody's day. So we had a good dynamic, as he mentioned. And what was interesting is that Adam and Lindsay had met us one time in person and had never met the other crew members. So the fact that it came together and it worked is pretty phenomenal, because a lot of the crew never really didn't know each other prior to spending 60 days in close quarters.
Yeah, which makes it even more of an achievement that everybody got along for that period of time, because we weren't necessarily super comfortable with one another before the start of it, but by the end of it, we definitely were.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can only I've crewed and paced for a 500-mile race before. That's a 10-day race. And it's a loop in Vermont.
Wow. How big of a loop?
10-mile.
Wow. 50 loops.
Yeah. Only about, I think it's 4 people have done it. In like the 4 or 5 years they had the race, and I crewed for a friend. She did 400. She's done the furthest women and did 400 miles. But yeah, so I understand that being in close proximity with people. Yes. And it's only about 5 or 6 people that ever race it each year, because it's ridiculous. Who wants, but you get very close with everybody, and it's lots of personalities all in one place.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
But so talking about the video you guys did, you actually it was a documentary you're making out of this, correct? So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so Charlie and Paul are our videographers. And I actually, again, it's funny how this whole crew came together, but Charlie and I didn't know each other prior to working together on this, but we have a mutual friend who connected us. And now I feel like I've known Charlie my whole life, but it's funny because 6 months ago we hadn't even met. But so Charlie and Paul, they signed on board. They just wanted to be a part of the adventure, and so they were committed to being a part of it regardless of how it played out. And we had the intention in mind from the beginning to film it and create a story out of it. And even though it didn't go the way we had hoped with the record, I think we still have a really cool story to tell. So over the coming months, we're going to be working with them and using the footage that we've gained and the stories and the interviews and everything, and putting it all together. And it should be, hopefully, turn out to be a pretty cool documentary. But amidst that plan, we also had some digital shorts, so to speak, where we created some fun videos and things like that, and those might play a little role in the documentary as well. But it was fun to give people a little taste of the kind of things that we were doing, and then bring it together big picture with the documentary.
Well, I guess what was kind of, it's hard to boil it down. I'm sure every day there was something amazing that sort of you saw or encountered, but Maybe what are a few of the highlights that you feel like you're really carrying from this experience? If you met somebody or if you saw some sunset, or I don't know.
Yeah. I'll start with one and then you can go. The thing that over and over and over again sticks out to me is the ridiculously amazing things that the community of people surrounding us, our followers, did for us. Whether it was someone coming out to meet us and run with us, or bring us something on the road. We had I bring this up all the time because I think it's so awesome. There was a couple named Linda and John. They came and ran with us in Texas, and then about a week later, it was around, I think it was right around Easter,
Yep.
maybe. So they were going to visit some family over Easter weekend, and John's family was in Louisiana, so they happened to be passing through where we were at. So Linda wrote us a message on Facebook, and they brought us Dairy Queen to where we were at. So they ran with us a week prior, and then they're bringing us food the next week. It's just stuff like that was so cool. And then we also had a ton of really awesome encounters. Obviously, with all my injuries, I was seeing physicians and people like that pretty constantly. And some of them were just so willing to help us in any way. They didn't we'd reach out to them and they'd offer their services for free, or just they wanted to do anything they could just to help what we were doing because they believed in it. And that, to me, the selflessness and the giving of everybody that we encountered was like, just blows my mind when I think about it. I wanted to soak it up as much as I could because it was happening so often. So now I'm trying to do my best to sort of work through that again and reflect on all the people and properly thank everybody for what they did.
I guess for me, I because I was with the crew most of the time. I mean, in addition to the ones he's already mentioned, I think I reflect a lot about just the magic that was the crew. And I think part of the reason that we all were able to come together and stay together for 60 days and still be friends at the end of it was, for 60 days, all of us, our sole purpose was to get Adam